I have a question, Stuart.
Go ahead.
Yes.
Can you talk about the ebb and flow of one's practice, where it seems to be going well and then it's really challenged, and it's going well and it's challenged, and just when you think life's going really good, it just dips and hits you hard? Could you talk about the ebb and flow, please?
Well, you know, I mean, what do you say? That's the way life manifests. Whatever you attain in life, there's always going to be a test of whether you can sustain it. And if you have some delusional thing in your brain thinking that life is always going to be smooth, then you have to really learn to surrender it, because life doesn't manifest that way. Life manifests with positive, negative, this, that. And the meditation exercise, the purpose of it is to give you the inner strength so that when things are good, you learn to surrender them. And when things are not so good, you learn to surrender them. And no matter what is going on in your life, you're able to move on. And you don't live with some kind of naive image in your brain that life should always be something, from some fairy tale. Obviously, it's not. It doesn't work that way. It'll never work that way. But we have a meditation exercise, that if you do it properly and really work at it, it gives you the strength to deal with whatever takes place. I mean, I had last week a very difficult week. It was really some awful stuff took place last week. And I went through it, got through it, and grew because of it, because I use this meditation exercise to transform that, no matter what is happening to me, into a spiritual life. But to sit around and think that it's always supposed to be, jelly and jam, it doesn't work that way. It's just naivety. And by this time in the life of everyone in this group, I mean, there's nobody here that's 2 years old. We should all know it doesn't work that way. And how it works is no matter what takes place, you have the capacity by using this meditation exercise to transform it into steps on a ladder that help you get closer to your spiritual enlightenment. Even the Buddha, God bless him, who had more wisdom than anybody, I guess, said the fastest path to God is suffering. It's the one thing that really makes you work on yourself. I mean, when everything is lollipops and ice cream cones, we sit around in a bathing suit and we, dip in the water a little bit and we drink our Coco Locos, and you understand. And when the shit starts to hit the fan and when things start going, people get down and start working on themselves. So we need that, because people take, the lollipop version of life for granted. And they assume that it's supposed to be like this forever, It's just like an ad for some, beach in the Bahamas, You get there and 60 things go wrong. But in the ad, it's all heaven, I mean, really. And people, we have to finally recognize that life has all kinds of complications that affect us. And we have to be grateful that we have a way of dealing with all that stuff. And I go, oh, here we go again. And I just do my inner work and I transform all the bullshit into something that really helps me to grow. I mean, Rudi he talked about this endlessly, that it's, that it's manure that creates an incredible organic garden, and we have to learn how to transform it into that which helps us to grow inside, instead of using it as a way, oh God, here we go again, and it's bad, and oh, what am I going to do, and how am I going to live through this, and blah, 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 blah. And ultimately, you have nothing because you waste all your energy feeling sorry for yourself. Instead of, all right, here we go. I got to go a little deeper. I got to open more. I got to transform this into my connection to God. I have to learn whatever this has to teach me to have a spiritual life, to grow because of it. I mean, you know, Rudi had the best aphorisms. Either you suffer consciously or you suffer like a schmuck. I'll never forget when that came out of his mouth. Never forget it. I just looked, I said, my God. I said, you know, I thought he was born in Brooklyn, and out comes aphorisms that are as wise as the Buddha, and yet they're in Brooklynese, you know? And this is really true. And the whole purpose of this meditation is to learn how to use whatever happens to you as an opportunity to grow and to get closer to your spiritual enlightenment. And to stop feeling sorry for yourself, because it takes you nowhere. It takes you absolutely nowhere.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Stuart, I have a question.
Yes.
So I was listening to a Rudi talk, and he was talking about spiritual groping, and I was taking it like when you're going for the next level, but it's unknown and you don't really know what it is, and reaching for that. Could you talk about going and reaching for that unknown when it's unknown?
It's funny because I had a class here this afternoon and somebody asked me a similar question, and I spent 20 minutes talking about it. So here we go again. I love it. Okay, well, look, every level and every cycle in your life comes to an end. And the end of the cycle begins the groping. It begins that kind of void-like space that you have to move through to get footing on the next level of your growth. And, you know, this basically is not only in spiritual practice, it happens in everything. You know, you're going to change where you live. And then, my God, the drama involved in moving, you know, getting married, birth, death, everything has endless drama to it. And the drama is the having to step into the unknown, to what has changed in your life and to a new way of dealing with your life. You know, and it's always, and look, again, we get back to a simple reality. This meditation gives you the strength to get through that void so that you can get to the other side, you know, and you can truly use that growth process that took place in getting to the other side, you know, to get your footing and to truly grow on a completely new level of inner work and also a totally new level of life. I mean, this is really one of the keys to having a spiritual life. You know, understanding that you've got to build an inner life that enables you to go through the void. Because there's always a void. I mean, for God's sake, you go to a pharmacy and you want to change it, or a health food store, wherever you get toothpaste, you know, and you want to change your toothpaste. Somebody can stand there a half hour contemplating which toothpaste should I, you know, I mean, we make changes and they always tax us. Even the most minute changes take a toll on people. And we have to learn how to go through that change. And when there's spiritual changes, it's very big changes, and the void can be quite big that you have to cross. But when you have the inner strength to do that, you know, you are capable of groping, as Rudi said, for a spiritual life and moving through the void and getting to the other side. So, you know, we all go through it in the most minute things in our lives. We go through this whole process of change. And every time we change, there's always some kind of big or little drama that takes place. because we no longer have our footing. The familiar has just vanished and we have to deal with the unknown. And ultimately, you learn that all creative energy is in the unknown. You know, all creative energy emanates from the unknown. Even the energy of stagnation emanates from the unknown. Everything emanates from the unknown. And when you grope spiritually, you understand you have stepped into the unknown and you're groping for that next cycle of consciousness that you have to reach. And you do it through as I always say, building a system inside that gives you the strength to move from one cycle to another cycle. And it's the key to all of this because it happens whether we like it or not. Just as no matter what we attain in life is going to be tested, whether we like it or not.
Mhm.
So the inner development of a chakra system and an inner life is the key to being able to deal with all these things. You know, all relationships are like that, you know. We get married and we expect our husband and wife to be the way they were when they were 18 and 20 years old. And here they are 50 and 60, and we're living with a completely different person. And in order to cross into that unknown, we have to be strong enough to love somebody unconditionally and to let them really evolve and grow and change in their life. The same way they have to do that with us because we're not the same person we were when we were 20 years old, 10 years old, an infant, you know? So it's all about building an inner life that is strong enough to be able to grope spiritually through the void and to get to the next cycle of energy. If you don't do that, you wind up stagnating, you know? I mean, when I was younger, one of the things I think scared me more than anything, it was that I was going to grow up to be exactly the way my parents wanted me to be. It really used to scare the hell out of me that I was going to grow up to have some house in Scarsdale with a white picket fence and a 3-car garage, you know, and that's how I was going to live the rest of my life. In some kind of stagnant state of being, you know? And I'm not putting it down because people need that, you know? They're not ready to do spiritual practice and inner work and all that stuff. So these things represent security to them and it's perfectly fine, you know? But when I was, 13, 14, 15, it used to scare the hell out of me that I was going to grow up to wind up living that way. Because even something then, pre-Rudi, knew that I had to change. I had to reach for a much higher level of consciousness and understanding and inner work and development, in order to live my life and to ultimately to become truly a child of God.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You got to grope spiritually. Because if you don't go through the void, you wind up living in stagnation. And then you have to have the guts to do it, not to be afraid. You have to have the system inside that enables you to do it. That's what this meditation is for, to truly build that kind of system. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Wendy, you don't have a question?
I just undid my mic before you said that. Yeah, the question that came up was similar to Zach, where it's something that I heard Rudi say about when we are rejecting someone else, we're really rejecting ourselves. When we have hatred to someone else, we're really, you know, just having hatred toward ourselves. So the
Yes.
question came up about asking you to talk about that a little deeper.
Well, look, I mean, it starts with this, and Rudi always spoke about this. The external world is a mirror of yourself. And if you reject things in the external world, you're simply rejecting. I mean, it depends, we also have choice. We can choose to step into quicksand or we can choose to go around it, I mean, and we're rejecting quicksand, because it represents, anyway, this choice. At the same time, you know, uh, rejecting many situations, what the situations are telling us. I mean, there are people, for instance, that reject spiritual practice, meditation. They don't believe in it. They don't, whatever. They understand. I mean, and all right, it's there. I have, you got to respect that too. That people are agnostic, they're atheists, they're whatever they are. And but when we reject a lot of things, what we're seeing is somehow an image of ourself. And that external thing that we're rejecting is reminding us of something so deep in ourselves that we don't want to face. That when we see it external to ourselves, we see a mirror image of it, we reject it. We run away from it. A lot of people reject success. A lot of people reject, relationships. They reject things like that because mostly the external manifestation of it is reminding them of something they're so afraid of inside themselves, that they have to run away from it. And I think when Rudi was talking about that, he was talking about that kind of thing. So sometimes it's better to embrace something and say, okay, what can I learn from this instead of outright rejecting it? What can I learn from being in a relationship with another human being? What can I learn from trying to be successful financially in my life? What can I learn from getting married, having children? What can I learn from these things? Instead of, getting, well, no, just rejecting them outright. Understand? And sometimes all of these things we reject become amazing opportunities. I mean, look, for so much of my life, I rejected getting married, having children, blah, 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 blah. I really did. I said, no, I wound up getting married. I wound up having a child. And that became such a key element in my spiritual growth, that I spent years rejecting it instead of, understanding by just simply doing it. I had to really grow spiritually. In order to even deal with it, I had to grow. I had to become another kind of a human being. So I think he was talking about that. He always used to say, look, what you don't want to do, do, because it will really make you grow. He always said that, Rudi. Whatever you don't want to do it, go do it. If you hate, if you're, kind of a person who lives in isolation and you hate to be around people, spend your time, being around a lot of people, and learn how to get over that in yourself. Same thing if you're totally gregarious and, you're the life of the party, spend some time being by yourself and seeing if you can deal with yourself. So he was really talking about that kind of thing. And I know, because I also went through it. When I was young, I was a very solitary person. And then as I got older and I learned about all of this, I started surrounding myself with a lot of people. And I did it intentionally because I knew I had to get over myself. I had to learn how to be, around people and to, and what all that had to, and my God, it became such a major step in my inner life and my growth. When I started running ashrams and I started having spiritual centers, and I had hundreds of people all the time that were coming in and out of my life. And there was something in me that couldn't say no. I had to embrace it. I had to learn from it instead of hide from it. So I think he was talking about that. The things that you're afraid of, do. You know, do. The things that really upset you and you feel, embrace them. See what they have to teach you. And I think it's an important element in the developing of one's life. It certainly helped me. Because when I went to, well, before that, when I was living in Rudi's house, I was a pretty solitary, monkish type of young man, living in, seclusion and in New York City. I lived that way. I used to work and I had some friends, but mostly it was trying to live a kind of monkish existence. And then suddenly I'm in Rudi's house surrounded by God knows how many people, having to cook breakfast every morning for 20 people. And I didn't even know how to cook. I had to learn how to do it while I was doing it. And if it wasn't any good and displeased Rudi, it would have really been, it would have been a very, but he would come up, oh, the eggs were great this morning, Stuart. I learned how to get past Stuart and to do things that I was really afraid of doing when I was younger. And then when I wound up in Texas, oh my God, so many people. Then in New York, 5 times the people that were in Texas. All of that built in me the capacity to get free of Stuart, that monkish kid who kind of hid himself in books and all kinds of stuff, in order not to embrace life, the fullness of life. So I think Rudi was talking about that. And I know he was, because I went through it. And I had to learn all these things, and I had to grow because of them. And I'll never forget when I was living in his house, never forget this. There was so much stabbing and people talking about each other and gossip. And I finally just got everybody living in his, I was supposed to be the number one person there, right? So I got all of them together, I sat them down, and I said, we really got to discuss this. And I just told people, I said, look, I'm here for one reason. I'm here to get what Rudi has to teach me. I'm not here to talk about any of you. I'm not here to judge any of you. I'm not here to backstab any of you. I'm not here to gossip. I am here for only one reason, and that is to get Rudi's teachings. And I said, and I think every one of you are here for the exact same reason. So all of this bullshit has to stop. And it stopped. It really stopped. And that was something that it took me a lot of guts to do, because I always hid from doing stuff like that. But I said, no, Stuart, you got to do this. And, and it really saved Rudi a lot of aggravation, and it saved me a lot of aggravation. Just sitting people down and doing that. And that was something that kind of Stuart, I rejected all my life. I always hid away from it. But I embraced it. I said, this is what I got to do. So I think he was talking about that kind of thing.
I had a follow-up that keeps coming up as you're talking, which is, so what's the discernment piece to recognize if there's something you're avoiding because it's genuinely quicksand and smart, or if it's a rejection that's, more sneaky, like a rejection that you're, thinking is quicksand or treating like quicksand.
Well, Wendy, I look at it this way. What can I do to grow in a situation? I don't analyze a situation. How can I grow? How can I build my inner life? How can I get closer to God, Spirit, in a situation? What do I have to do? And sometimes it's the most outrageous stuff, that I would never logically come to a conclusion I should do that. So I don't analyze and judge things according to my, all right, what is this teaching me? What do I have to do to grow here? How can I become a better human being because of what is going on here? You know? And I find that works for me. It works for me with just about everybody I have to deal with. How can every person I deal with, what is there for me to learn to grow? I mean, last week I had to reject people from coming to this meditation because I knew it wouldn't be good for them to be here. That was not easy for me to do. I had to gulp 3 times before I did that. I really mean this. But I had to tell a couple of people that, you can't come. It's too much drama, too much soap opera here. This didn't exist before you came here. And suddenly your appearance here has created, and I didn't want to inflict that on everybody that was here. And this was a very hard thing for me to do. So it's always what makes me grow. What I finally resolved it by telling them, look, wait 8 months, a year, things might change, we can talk again, but that's how I do it. I'm not interested in figuring out a situation logically. I'm interested in how can this help me grow in my life? How did my marriage help me grow in my life? And it did. God bless. I'm very grateful for what I went through. And how did, running a business for 30 years help me to grow in my life? And it really did. Taught me how not to be afraid of money. Taught me how not to be afraid of success. And these are things that always scared the hell out of me when I was in my teens and early 20s. I rejected them. So I did these things to learn how to get past me. How to find in all of this stuff a way that got me closer to my spiritual growth, and more conscious as a human being. And thank God it worked, it really worked. And then you stop judging people, you stop knowing better than everybody, and you just look at the world, you say, what am I here to learn? What do I learn? Some lessons are very easy. All right, I don't want to do that, That's not going to help me grow. Some lessons are much harder. You got to go through that void. You got to go through hell sometimes to learn. I mean, look at the Buddha. He spent 40 days fasting. I mean, they have statues of him. Early statues of the Buddha fasting, and it's just bones. A skeleton. Christ, 40 days and nights in the desert. Fighting with the devil or whatever he was fighting with, some spirit. I mean, it's always that way. What did they learn doing that? What do we all learn being born, having to live here, and then one day having to leave here? I hope that's clear because I think this is very important. And I think people run away all the time instead of, how can I grow? What can this teach me? What can taking a chance, stepping into the unknown, what can embracing things I don't like so much, how can this teach me? I mean, if half these politicians would just do inner work, I mean, the hell that they live through every day could be a remarkable tool to getting closer to God. If it forced them to go inside themselves instead of being in their brain all the time, trying to figure out the right answer. And they never come up with the right answer, ever. But what can I do to grow in myself? How can I go deep enough so I can get a system inside, you know, that can view the world a little differently? Does anyone else have a question?
Thank you, Stuart.
You're welcome. Questions are great. I told you, this is becoming such an important aspect of the teachings in these classes. Does anyone else have a question? And let me just finish this, okay? It's not just going through hell. It's like Rudi said, you suffer consciously or you suffer like a schmuck, you know? It's not just going through hell. That's not gonna, it is while you go through it, using the experience to build a stronger inner life. Because the only place you can get the energy to deal with that difficulty is from a higher source. That Shakti that'll flow into you because you do your inner work while you're going through the most difficult periods of your life. That's where you have to go. And then you're not suffering like a schmuck, you're suffering consciously. You're using the difficulty of your life to get closer to higher energy, because that's where the energy is that you need in order to get through the difficult periods. And that's all this meditation is about, honestly. You know, it's the greatest craft you can imagine to have to help one move from point A to point B in life. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, if there are no more questions, then there'll be a meditation tomorrow evening. And God bless you all, and thank you. Also, I just want to say, you know, people, you know, send me donations, and I can't tell you how grateful I am that people really care enough, you know, to send donations and to help me, you know, do this, what I do here, you know, because there's always Caesar here that you got to pay your bills and and all that. And people are very kind and send donations. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that people just think about it and say, okay, I gotta, you know, do something to sustain these classes that are going on Zoom. So God bless you all and thank you. And there'll be a class tomorrow evening, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you.
Good night, Stuart. Thank you.
Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you for a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Welcome, Chris. Very nice.
Thank you, Stuart.